In my last couple dioramas, I found that I needed to modify my figures quite a bit. Now, I know you could do like a 3D print or you could buy extra parts for, to modify your figures, but that's extra money, and I think you can do a great job modifying the regular kits that you just buy off the shelf, and you can get almost any pose that you want. So I'm going to show you how to do that to include changing uniforms. So that's what we're going to do today. I hope you like it. In this first scene, I just wanted 3 figures. I've got to try to show how they dug the tunnels in World War I. They had the guy on the backboard, he's the kicker. Then there was a guy right next to him that would fill sandbags, and the guy behind him would kind of load him out, and get him out of there. So that's the scene that I'm trying to create. I didn't have those guys, of course, so I cobbled these 3 figures together using different kits, even different uniforms from different areas. I think one guy is British and another guy's German. All these upper torsos are really the same. It's just that the ones on the left-hand side, they lean back, and as it goes to the right, they kind of lean progressively forward. I just had a bunch and I lined them up and figured this out. So I used that to build my figures. I was able to take these then and then carve their uniforms away so that they were all wearing the same thing. I also put them in shorts and t-shirts to kind of give the effect of, it's really hot down there. Carving arms and legs is pretty simple. My best advice is to try to have an example piece. I had this figure from another kit, and because I could kind of tell how thin, an ankle was, that was kind of like blew my mind, so that really gave me a good perspective. The other thing is, you see here, I got like a stop mark at the bottom of the pant leg where the shorts are going to stop. Then I just kind of shaved back the arm and the leg so it looked like a leg. I looked at my own leg. I looked at my own arm. And it worked out pretty good. To fix helmet head, I don't want to put a hat on this guy. I thought about using this plastic putty, and while it looks kind of fun, it didn't work out at all. It's too soft and it just doesn't allow you to sculpt a proper head. So what I finally did was just put some styrene on there. Then I kind of shaped it, and stuff like that. And it worked great. I wanted to replace this guy's hand, so I just drilled into the wrist, drilled into the hand, used a little brass pin, put it on there, all good. When it comes to painting, I like to use like Tamiya paint for my base, and then I'll go to an acrylic. So I started with Tamiya, got these all base coated, and then started in painting. And I thought, I want a really dirty, really cruddy, down there in the mud, bloody elbows, bloody knees. Man, they look terrible. So I had to go back and strip all this off and start over. And I'm really glad I did. This is actually pretty simple. I'd never done it before. It was just 99% denatured alcohol with the Q-tip, and it comes right off. And then I just repainted. It did not mess up any of the work that I did. It did not mess with any of the glue. It just took off the paint, and I repainted, and I'm real happy with it. I needed a medic station, from the very start. That was part of the plan. Then I needed some patience, and so this is the guy who fell out of a balloon. And I started with this guy. He's a World War II German artillery figure. To make him into our balloon guy, I had to carve away his hat. I needed to carve one of his legs to look like bandages, the other one to just look like a leg, and then I needed to bend his arm up so it was in a sling. For the head bandage and sling, I use Kim wipes. I've used these for years. They're great. They don't fall apart like tissue does. I glued it underneath the arm, waited till that dried, then wrapped it up, and then glued it to the shoulder. Once that dried, I wrapped it around the back and then added another piece, that kind of came underneath. And then I just started on the legs. So I wanted this right leg broken and splinted, so I had to kind of get it down to a bare leg. In my Wolfenstein diorama, I had a guy with a bare leg, but I had to take his boot off. So I had to like carve a foot and the ankle and everything like that. So I just remembered that. I did the same thing here. Then I put the splint on it, started concentrating on the left leg, just, you know, kind of made it look like bandages, painted it up. Gave him a nice place to lay down. So I thought he had a heck of a day, and that was a perfect spot for him. I'm calling this advanced helmet head because the last time when I did this, I kind of painted on their hair. Here, I'm actually going to carve it. I even have these displays that I made for a show last year, and it's really pretty simple. If you've got this, you have options. Obviously, you can put a different hat on it. But I found that I just wanted guys, you know, they're in tunnels. They don't have to have head cover on, and I want to have hair on them. So the first thing I do is I take a larger piece of styrene and put it on top. And I want it large enough so that I can sculpt a head. And here's something key. When you sculpt that head, don't sculpt it larger like you're going to have a big hairdo. Don't think of it like that. When you get your piece on there and it's been glued and you let it maybe glue overnight, you know, so it's really on there, sculpt it so it just looks like a regular head. You know what I mean? Just the regular shape of a head. Don't try to over sculpt it and add the hair, because that's the next step. So the next step, and I've got tools here that I actually use. This is a small chisel that I use when I'm doing these. This is from Lee Valley. It's awesome. And then this is the Master Tools 9928. Really, really nice model chisel. And it's got that little diamond kind of a cutting head, which is just brilliant. Here's my mock-up that's bigger so you can see me doing this stuff. So what I do is the first thing is I take the model chisel and I come up here and I establish the crown of the head. You can do that on either side. You know, I'll usually start from the back, and if I start here, I've got a right part. Here's a left part. And I just take this, and I'm not going too deep, but, you know, I want it seen, and I'm just working my way forward. Now, once I get to the front, I kind of stop, you know, and then I start thinking about where the break is going to be, where the part's going to end up. Varying this crown is going to be the biggest determination of the kind of hairstyle, I guess, you know, you're going to have. So think about that. You know, I go a little bit further, you're going to have a big swooping, and then you can have the hair kind of do this. And I did that on our model. But the higher up, you know, you're going to have longer hair here. So just think about that. So I've made that groove right there. Now I take the chisel and I come in here and I define the forehead. So I come from that point, and here's my larger chisel I'm using as a diagram aid or whatever. And I'm cutting straight in. And I don't have to do it hard. You know, this is just styrene. It's pretty forgiving. So I'm just cutting straight down in like that, and then straight down in like this. Okay. And I'm tapering away a little bit. See that? I'm not so deep of a cut here, a little bit more deep there. So once that's done, then I start coming up from the forehead, and I come up from the forehead to that line that I cut into the forehead, and that defines, you know, your part, you know, the front of that part. The same thing here. Here, I'm trying to come in really super shallow, and as I go forward, I'm getting a little bit deeper. Even as I say that, I mean, it is not that deep. All you need to do is create a shadow line, and you'll see that in the figures that we'll look at here. But that's all you're trying to do. Once that's done, now it's time to go back to the 9928 tool. Here, I'm going to come back, and I like to start at the crown. And all I do is I start here, and I start with the chisel pointing outward. I start here, and I start going down. I don't want to do straight lines. Your hair is not straight. So I'm going to do this and slowly work my way here. At a certain point, you're going to get to that seam, you know, where you glued that part on. That's totally fine. You're going to go right through that seam, and that's important that you do, because that blends the top piece that you glued on with the bottom. And the other thing that's neat is you're not going to really see that seam. So anyway, I'm going to continue my way around. Remember, you have a single point in your hair where it kind of radiates out, typically just a single. And so now I go along that part, and here I go in that direction. I don't go all the way with every one of them. Every once in a while it's great, but I do little partials and stuff like that. And then I go all the way to the front. Then I'll do the same thing on this side, starting back here and going all the way to the front. How it comes into the ear is a little bit funky, but you'll get that. It's just a couple of little swipes, and then you want to kind of sand up to it. So that is how I carve the heads after I've placed a little bit of styrene on top to get, just hair. So this guy is a World War I soldier, but it's made from a World War II mechanic. I hope it's close enough. The collar's not the same, but what I did was I started basically at the feet, and I did the putties up to just below the knees, and then I went up just to, below the waist and made that the bottom of the jacket. To carve the putties, I started by cutting a line all the way around each leg, just below the kneecap. Then I would cut up to that line, and I was using my little chisel, my little Lee Valley chisel, and cut up to that line just to thin it out. Then I would come back with a file and kind of put these in, not with a knife, but with the file, a real thin file. It's a spiral around the leg, starting in the top, wrapping around to the bottom. And then the last thing I did was I kind of contoured, the bloused kneecap, the fabric there. I bloused that into the putty at the top. So the last thing is just carving the bottom of this jacket. And you just start by, shaving off those pockets. And then, just like before, I'll define the bottom of where the jacket will end. And that line goes all the way around, and then I start using my chisel to kind of carve up to that line. By slowly kind of angling it in, I get that nice kind of shadow. Then the next thing is I take one of my very fine files, I shape everything, I give it pockets, same process, and after you get a little bit of primer on it, gosh, I think it looks great. A little bit of paint, you'd never know it wasn't something you bought out of a kit. As a special thank you for staying on this long, here's Floaty Guy from Wolfenstein.